Eirik, my dear friend from Nine Coliving, one of the great people that I met there during my long stay. He's a hiking Viking. That's a nice nickname that we invented while we were all staying there. And today I'm talking with him about his journey of volunteering, self-discovery, and becoming a digital nomad. Also, he's very honest about his struggles with mental health, with finding methods and practices that help him to be better. And also about working as a full-stack location-dependent developer that focuses on Web3, but that's not all what he is doing. For links, show notes, and transcription, please go to nerdontour.net/podcast or just click the link in the description of this episode. Go to nerdontour.net/podcast to learn more. Enjoy. Hello and welcome. I am Piotrek Bodera. This is Nerd on Tour podcast. And today I'm talking with Eirik Mo, remote full-stack Web3 developer and mighty hiking Viking. How are you?
Thank you for the introduction. I am very well. And how are you?
I'm also very nice. And I'm happy that we have this amazing opportunity here on the Tenerife Island where we met first time over a year ago at Nine Coliving.
Yes, Nine Coliving.
And now we will be talking about some interesting topics, but let's start with this most amazing and funny thing that you just mentioned on our lunch here, that when you first started your journey a few years back, you felt like super sick and almost puking because it was so stressful, wasn't it?
Yes, it was really stressful. I like the way my digital nomad journey started was pretty much without any sort of backup plan. I just had enough. I just quit my job. I sold or gave away all my stuff and booked a flight to the warmest place within Europe I could find. And on the day of my travel, I was so scared I almost vomited. It was really, really scary.
But was it the very first time you were traveling?
It wasn't the first time I was traveling. Of course not. But I knew that this was something I had to do.
Okay.
It was almost out of desperation. That's how bad it was.
Okay.
Because I felt like I had to live up to all these expectations of society. Finish your studies, get a job, work, buy a house,
get kids,
get a wife, kids, and 2 cars. Never felt right with me. I mean, that's fine for people who want that. Just never was for me, and I felt wrong. Just thinking that's just my future. I felt trapped in Norway, and I felt trapped by this 9-to-5 lifestyle, just going to work, and that's it. Especially in Norway.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided I need to just go somewhere else.
Okay.
I lived off of my savings. I didn't know if I would continue to be a web developer. I'm a web developer. And I ended up volunteering multiple places here on Tenerife. And then big stroke of luck for me was that I got recommended this place called Nine Coliving, where we all know about by now.
Yes,
and that's where
yes.
so many of us, people who has been on the podcast here before,
we are all connected to this one place.
Even started. We all connected there, yeah. And I had the best job I've ever had in my life, which was walking a dog twice a day and doing a little bit of gardening. And I did that for 3 months and got a car. And I got to drive around on the island and explore absolutely everything. And I refound my love of nature and of hiking and the importance of that. And that is very much thanks to Anna, the owner of Nine Coliving. So big shout out to her.
Yes.
Thank you.
She's also a guest of another episode of this podcast.
Yeah. So that's how it all started.
Okay. And Before we move into the beginning of the digital nomad journey, can you tell more, how did you get inspired? Because there are so many people around the world in different countries, in different cultures. Maybe specifically in Western world, it's more heavy, because we think from the perspective of like, oh, we are those individuals. Every one of us should seek our, dreams and whatnot. And of course, the society or the setup is there to be kind of like easy, and everyone is like repeating the same cycle because this is what we know and this is what is working for the most of society. But yeah, like what was it with you that, like, did you meet some other digital nomads?
No, I didn't know a single digital nomad at the time. I have heard about the phenomenon, and I like looked at it as like some sort of almost like an achievable dream. My motivation was out of the little pain I was feeling from the situation I was in. I wasn't in a good place where I would like say, I just want to improve. I was like, this is so bad, I need to change. And it did change everything for me. It was a liberation of myself as a person, and put me into an environment and a mindset where I could actually grow for the first time I felt in my life. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was more driven by desperation than anything else. It's not like a sunshine story in that sense.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you are already, kind of scratching the topic that we'll move into with the mental health of digital nomads, because that's very important. And even if you don't aspire, or if you are not kind of focused that you want to do digital nomading for your life, it's definitely something that at least our generation is more kind of open to talk about, and to be, caring and sharing with others. To don't be shy of what is happening inside of us. But before we dive into this, please tell more of the very beginning. Like, you have those savings, you decided to come here to Tenerife because that was like the warmest place within Europe to travel to. And did you do those volunteering jobs because you want to keep your savings for as long as possible? Or did you actually consider, changing completely your career and abandoning all those computers?
That was indeed one thing I was considering. First of all, I just needed to get away. That was my first priority. And I first lived just through hostels, tried to find them as cheap as possible because I knew I was on a limited budget. And then I started looking at workaways. So me and my girlfriend at the time, we did that. And first place is up on a finca in the south, where I believe you have been yourself.
Alta Vista.
Amanda's place, yeah. So I was there for just a week, which is almost, as far as I know, uncalled for because of the amount of time. She doesn't really accept people for this short amount of time, but it was like a last-minute listing. I did that, just acclimated to the warm weather and sun. Like, it's kind of a shock for a Norwegian. Came in January 2019.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. And then I kept looking for more workaways. Found one. The next one was in La Rotava, in the north of Tenerife, and that's through there I found the Nine Coliving. And for all of that time, I was just thinking about what am I going to do next. Of course, I was very much happy in the moment. I really, really enjoyed my time, and I felt for the first time that I was able to actually appreciate and really, really enjoy the now. But of course, I knew that one day would come where I would have to face the reality, become financially independent again. I was kind of I noticed how much it affected me just to be in front of a computer for 8 hours a day. It's not great. It's so easy to get distracted. It's easy to just get this brain fog and don't feel that connected to the real world out there anymore. It is almost kind of ironic because the before that, the only thing I would do in my free time would be to play video games and spend even more time on the screen. It was just apathic, escaping reality, But I ended up meeting a guy at Nine that offered me a part-time job in development, and I had been working with in a different framework within the development community called Angular, and then I changed to something called React, which I think in this field you'll have to be kind of flexible and be able to transition, and I did that, and then I could put that on my CV and my LinkedIn that I'm working with this, I have experience with this, and that just opened a lot of doors for me. So I know even though this wasn't paying much at all, the experience and the fact that I can say that I worked with it, this had a lot of value for me. So I did that, and I saw that, okay, it's actually possible. I, like many other developers, have struggled with imposter syndrome, where we feel like we're not really good enough to do our job. We're like, I can't believe someone is paying me for this, I'm sitting here and I spent pushing buttons, Googling stuff. We basically have a bachelor's degree in Googling,
How to push buttons more effectively.
To push buttons. And then you look through this, you try to compile something, and then it doesn't work, and then you spend 2 or 3 hours, and then you're like, oh shit, I was missing a semicolon. How are someone paying me for this? And then, that's extreme though, but it's things like that.
This is how you learn.
This is how you learn. And luckily for me, this skill set is very sought after. So it's the market is really in the employees' hands here, and we're lucky. And because Corona hit eventually, I mean, it's bad timing for me actually to go full-time travel, and Corona hit just a year later, so I didn't really get the opportunity to really, really travel. I stayed most of my time on Tenerife because it was just so good here for me. And the plan for 2020 was to really travel more around the world, of course. That didn't work out. But because the silver lining for me and a lot of other people during the pandemic is that remote jobs were much more accepted. Yeah, well, not just accepted, but required for many businesses to survive. And this opened doors for me and many others. Now remote work is much more accepted, and it's pushed that sector forward. If you want to be a successful distributed company these days, you'll have to just be okay with
the best people are in workers. The world, not in your city or even in your country anymore.
Right.
Yeah?
People are opening their eyes and saying, well, I don't actually have to go to this office. I don't need to live in this city. I can be free. So now people are just not accepting, people are quitting their jobs because their companies are telling them they have to come back to office, which is a great liberation for people, I think. So I ended up continuing as a web developer, but I was considering other things, and there are still things that I would like to do in my life through either business or NGOs or something that is even more fulfilling than what I'm currently doing.
Okay, so the volunteering was a short adventure, just to kind of see that you can enjoy such simple activities like walking a dog. And Lara, of course, is a lovely, lovely dog from Nine. So everyone who is coming there, they understand that she is the pet, like the mascot of Nine, but she's also super independent and doesn't care about
she was
anyone.
A co-owner, no?
A co-owner, definitely.
I'm not sure what I'm allowed to say on this podcast, but I remember reading a blog from the couple that was responsible for Lara before me, Ben and Fabienne, and they are Swiss and they write in French. And I remember reading this blog from them, and they talked about Lara, and of course the way they refer to female dogs in French. I don't speak French, so I translated all of this to English with Google Translator, and it said in this post that Lara, the co-living bitch, is staying there. Yeah, it's quite accurate.
You can swear in this podcast, of course,
great.
but a side note, in this case, bitch is just female dog. Yes, so we are not exactly referring to a person or to a profession.
Yeah.
Okay, Eirik, that's a very good way to go into the next topic of your culture, and I think your sense of humor, because it is also somehow connected. Yeah, like your upbringing or like the environment. I like literally you are the first person from Norway that I get to know much more and to spend
my condolences.
more time. I really want to keep it just one person. So if you introduce your friends, I will tell them no, I already have Eirik.
Sorry on every Norwegian's behalf for my behavior and the way I'm representing my country. I apologize.
We all do our best, in terms of how we represent our countries, even unintentionally sometimes. Yeah. Like when people meet me and like, oh, you're Polish. So all the Polish people are tall and like blonde and like, yeah, of course.
Of course. Yes.
This is how it works. Mm-hmm. Okay. So how it is in your case, like what can you say that, Norwegians or like the culture is most known for in the world?
I don't know. I think that there's not that many Norwegians, right? It's not like when you travel and you see like Germans or Polish people everywhere, because there's such a large population. There are quite a few of us. I'm not sure really what the stereotype is, but
there is none. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah,
I have no clue. How are Norwegians? So
how are Norwegians? Not so much like me. I feel kind of a little bit of an outcast in a way, like in a good way. I don't identify that much with like the Norwegian culture. Although as I travel, the more as I look back at it, of course, it's giving you perspective, and like you see things that things in Norway are like that. Those things are good. Those things are kind of strange. Of course, we have a fairly good reputation when it comes to like democracy and to some extent like how we incorporate socialist systems. But the way I can't really talk for like how other people see Norwegians, but how I see them is that we're very privileged. It's extreme, I guess, to say that like being born in Norway is like winning a lottery ticket, but in some sense that is quite true. I think as a Norwegian you have more opportunities for actually becoming the person you want to be more than almost anywhere in the world. You have so much freedom there, and but there's of course negative things with Norway too. I think that Norwegians are kind of closed off, not very open for foreigners or well, it's not like people are like very super racist compared to other places in the world, but they're a little bit standoffish. When you have someone moving in next to you, you don't necessarily go over to them with like a
have a lunch together.
Next day. Or like you know might wave at them for a few weeks. Maybe you get together eventually, but I wish we were more welcoming, more kind to our neighbors and all of this stuff. I think that most Norwegians would have they could gain a lot of perspective just by going traveling and seeing how it is in other places in the world, because we are world champions of complaining about what is wrong in Norway. Everyone is all in the news. Like one of the biggest political cases the last years have been like whether we should have wolves in the country or not, which goes to show like
wolves.
Yeah, wolves.
You mean the animals?
Yeah, the animal in the forest, because they sometimes kill sheep, and that's horrible for the farmers and of course the sheep, and that's what we're arguing about. That's this huge controversy in a way, and most things in Norway are great. of course, there's the same debates going on there as in the rest of the world with the climate change, and of course during COVID, everything's been about that, but still, we're very good at complaining about what is not functioning from the government or whatever. My biggest complaint about Norway is that it's cold and dark all the time, which is not really the responsibility of the government, of course. So
no.
Well, maybe
I thought it's like with the walls. You can just solve it with.
No, I think that's only the case in China, that they can change the weather.
They revert the sun.
They spray stuff into the atmosphere that removes all the clouds and stuff. Yeah. But it's in seriousness, appreciation of what you do have is something that is a good practice to just do, and something that certainly I needed to learn. But it was really, really hard for me to do in Norway. I just did not feel at home there. But I can appreciate a lot of things about Norway, and I can go back there and enjoy it.
Is the feeling of kos one of those?
The feeling of
kos, K-O-S. Do I pronounce it correctly?
Kos or kos. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Kos is very important in Norway. I think it's almost more globally known as hygge. I believe it was a Danish that globalized that term.
So it's comparable.
It's pretty much the same thing. Yeah. We, like I said, it's cold, it's dark half of the year, right, or even more, and that's reflected in people's households, the interior and everything. It has to be nice because we spend so much time indoors. We have to enjoy it there. Tend to have warmer lights and a lot of like nice things on the walls, and I think like the simplest thing that you can describe as kos or hygge is just a warm cup of hot chocolate, and just wrapping yourself in a blanket next to the fireplace, reading a good book. That's like the epitome of kos. And do you
still do it? Like, is it a part of you that you sometimes?
Yeah. I walk around, like even here in Tenerife, I'm wearing woolen socks right now, and I have a blanket right over here that I'm considering wrapping myself in right now, actually, but I'm not.
Hot chocolate, maybe after podcast, okay?
Yeah, sure. I love hot chocolate, and I still like kos, and actually, I think I might be one of the few sort of like. Well, I'm not the best minimalist when it comes to travel yet. My girlfriend is a lot better than me, but I am traveling with as few things as necessary, but I'm actually traveling with a smart light bulb that I can put into the sockets next to my bed, because I want to be able to control which light I have when I'm reading in the
warmth of the light.
Yeah, so I can have the warm light, because I cannot stand these blue-white lights that I have here, especially in Spain. I think it completely ruins the atmosphere. So I like the warm yellowish lights.
We should definitely put a link to your smart light bulb that you're traveling with. It's one of the necessities, It
matters so much to me. It's such a little thing, actually. So, yeah.
It is. But, this is one of the reasons why I'm asking those questions, because the culture is so ingrained in us that only after you think about it and like try to compare it to other cultures, and you actually see what you put in your backpack and then traveling the world, is like, this is not really necessarily, but like for an average traveler, but for me, it's so important.
It is. Yeah.
That's why.
And I have the space for it. It's just a little light bulb.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can control with your phone, with your app, like the exact kind of like.
Exactly. Yeah. And I can have
temperature.
And I can have like the strobe light, almost like the changing lights whenever I can. When I want to party, I can put on the green and blue.
So it can be a party light too?
It can be if I want it to be. I like to create my own environment to fit myself.
And I assume there is also like this sunrise color palette.
Yes.
You can make it slowly kind of.
There's a lot of research showing that the kind of light you are in can affect your like productivity and focus, for example. And you definitely should have a certain type of light in the morning. For me, there's not really anything that can replace true sunlight. And
I agree totally.
And and it's actually so hard coded in us that it's not even enough to just go. If you wake up at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you go outside, then that sunlight that you get, it won't affect you the same way that the light during sunrise would. The light during sunrise has this frequency or within the spectrum that it as it enters your retina and into your brain, this triggers like your whole circadian rhythm, basically. As the first sunlight comes into your eye in the morning, a clock starts, which says what is happening exactly when. So what's happening then is that you get a cortisol shot, which is a stress hormone, right? Which is sometimes or oftentimes looked at something negative, but you actually need that to function.
If it's a small dose, like just waking you up, getting ready for the day.
But it also starts a timer for when melatonin will get inside your body, which is one of the sleep hormones that makes you tired. It's really, really important stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it's interesting to see in many smart devices that we use so much now, it is built in the operating system, they can adjust to your geographic location, and then depending on when the sun is rising and setting down, it will give you the warmth of the screen. Trying to mitigate the blue light and giving more warm colors.
We have all this technology that is affecting our lives and has a lot of unintended effects compared to it really, really can disturb our rhythm and all. And I think that the solution here isn't really to just discard the technology and just not use it, but rather try to just keep developing the technology and work with the technology. So say if you build a new house now, rather than just like turning off all the lights and having a bonfire in the evening,
which you could have,
would be nice, very cozy.
You just need to have a proper Airbnb for that.
Yeah, you need a proper Airbnb. The light from the bonfire would actually, if you use that, it would not trigger this thing in your brain so that you would not be able to fall asleep. It would not release or hinder the release of melatonin, but a phone screen would do that. But what we can do is, of course, develop this technology so that the frequency of light that is emitted is fine and doesn't inhibit the melatonin. But also you can start building your houses where you have this technology built in, so that the light, instead of having overhead lights, you have light that is below
almost
level,
like
and it's
bonfire.
like a bonfire, and it's the red orange sort of light, and you can still see things, and you can still
function in the house. But hence also the dark mode thing. In like most of the apps now, you would have it completely reverted. In a sense that if you are working at night or you need to look at your phone, because it's already dark, it is actually very good for your eyes that you are not hit with this huge white full contrast light into your eyes, but instead you would have the dark background, and just like some small letters, like readable enough, but you get the information, but you don't get the shock of this triggering your cortisol levels and whatnot.
Yes, exactly.
If anyone wants to kind of play with it and they don't have it yet built in the system, there is this little app called Flux, Flux, that kind of begin the whole thing of like being more aware and like changing the settings for your screen.
I recommend everyone to have that on their
devices.
All their devices, pretty much.
And speaking about technology, let's go a step further, because it's really interesting to see that you mentioned you were considering completely dropping your web developer career because some other things became more interesting, or at least at the time they were this, let's say, relaxation for your mind, that you wanted to be more with nature or more with actual physical things. But now you are back again in the mode of being a web developer, which is also important to underline that you are not working, or you are trying not to work like full time. If you sign some contracts, you would work like 3 or 4 days a week, and then have some more time for yourself or for some personal projects. Can you tell more about, how do you structure stuff? How do you choose your projects now? What technology do you prefer to use?
Well, so the reason I'm still a web developer is because, well, first of all, I find it fun. There is some fulfillment. It's not entirely fulfilling in the sense that I still have ambitions, things I want to achieve individually. But it does provide me with a very flexible lifestyle. I have a good team that I'm working with right now in Norway. I have a very flexible, I have a lot of freedom through them. And of course, being from Norway, I am very privileged with salaries from there. I tax there still, of course, which I'm happy to do, and follow all those rules. But like I said, I still want to do something more. Like, I wouldn't say I want to create a legacy, but I would like to do something that I could be really proud of, and something that I feel matter, something that where I feel like I'm contributing to society, something that gives me purpose, more than just enjoying my life. And
is it anyhow connected to open source?
Not at the moment, no. It might be at some point when I get my projects running that I'm thinking of. But so I can mention one project that I was beginning, which did not end up happening as of now, and that was just my own personal van lifing project. But that's not related to like development or anything. It was just like another
DIY
another DIY hobby. I felt like here I could do something with my hands. I could build something, and the point of it was to have even more freedom of mobility and not having to like rent Airbnbs or go to Colivings or go to certain flights and things like that. But we put it on ice as of now because we're not sure about van lifing in Europe, as it's getting a little bit more restricted in different countries as it's getting really, really popular, and not many countries are like supportive of it. So that's a little bit on ice right now for me and Lucy. I am doing a website for my mom, who's an artist, and I'm made her a gallery, which will become a store also, where she can sell her paintings. And that's just something that's just for my mom.
Can you share the URL already?
Yes,
or
yes, of course, I can do that.
What's the name?
Svanhildstub.no.
That's the name
or
of
.com
the
actually.
studio.
.com. Svanhildstub is the name of my mom. .com. And there you can see the gallery. It was something that I did so that I could help my mom, first of all, but also something that is good for my portfolio and a good way of learning and building something end to end. So it's been a fun experience. In terms of my ambitions and things that I would like to do that would be more, even more fulfilling for me, or giving me even more like purpose, there are two things that are really, really close to me. The first is mental health. So I'm not really sure right now how it would look, but I am considering something that would really help, especially people in Norway, maybe primarily focused on males, because that's what I am, obviously, and
that
I know
the most.
And the possibility to expand from there is obvious, but I would like to start small and then expand, scale it up. I think I have a lot of experience that is very valuable to people from my childhood, from my decision to become a digital nomad, through the type of work I'm doing, that where I could help a lot of people gain a lot of more freedom in their life, more wealth and more freedom. Wealth for me means is almost synonymous with freedom. The acquisition of money for me means being able to do more things in life when you want to do it, from wherever you want to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about having a business or an NGO, preferably, where I could easily help people start this journey. Maybe people who are struggling mentally, helping them with finding therapy, helping them with finding their own purpose and fulfillment in life through giving them a skill set. I believe that everyone wants to feel useful. Everyone wants to feel like they're able to contribute in one way or another. I think very few people who are too sick to work are really happy about that. I think most people would want to be able to work. And I want to help people realize that they don't need to necessarily have the greatest education. They don't necessarily need to stay in one place.
Is it anyhow connected to a culture of like overworking, of like, putting even more hours that you should, or it's not a case in Norway?
I think that working 40 hours or 37 and a half, that is normally in Norway, is too much. I believe in finding a work-life balance, and that's why I am only working 60% right now. I will up it to 80% because I realized it was too little. I would actually like to work more. I think the fact that it is that much is something that has just been pushed by businesses and companies in the world. And I think it has detrimental effects on society as a whole. I believe in people either running their own business or being freelancers, and at least having more control over their time. And I think more and more businesses these days, they are giving their employees more freedom, more flexibility to work different hours, to communicate asynchronously, not necessarily have meetings all the time every day. That's not something I want to grow.
Not on Zoom calls.
Not on Zoom calls.
Because it's I just mention it as on the side, but it's really important to understand that if you feel like you need to talk with 20 people on a Zoom call in your company or whatever project that you're running, literally what you're trying to do is to find a virtual, equivalent to meeting everyone in one room. Because you feel important, like, oh, everyone is looking at me. I need to tell them something, right now. They all need to kind of like nod their heads or whatnot. And it's like super inefficient, super disrespectful for their own time and for their own, way of scheduling things. And if it's like super important message that you want to deliver to them, you could think twice of like, maybe it's just, you can write a letter and pre-record the video and just send it to them and, ask them, please respond or please fill this questionnaire within 2 days because it's like super important. But this is actually showing the respect for their time, showing the respect of their own way of life, of their own productivity. And again, in most cases, you just don't need the Zoom calls, because they don't solve things. Even if you look at people's faces all the time, it just doesn't mean it's productive.
Digital communication, as it is something that is a sort of skill set within a group, a company, and it can be developed. And for every time change is necessary, it is painful. And but that pain is good for you, and as you can overcome those growing pains, then you will learn something, you will achieve something in the end. And I think this is kind of analogous, I find, to how the school system is a little bit today, where a lot of the lecturers and stuff, they are trying to work for like a broader, like in a general sense, but it's not rarely or ever tailored for the individual. But today we have the technology to do this sort of things, where people can, like just watch a lecture video whenever they want at the the speed they want, and be able to take notes in the way they want. Of course, what you lose then is the ability to ask your lecturer questions, which can be solved in other ways. Like you can have communication channels with your lecturer or professor, and then it depends on on his workflow, how effective that is. But it is possible, but it needs to be figured out, and people need to practice it, and they need to learn it, and then it will in the end work.
Funny enough, I don't know if you have heard about this from Basecamp, from the team that is one of the pioneers of remote work and giving some solutions. Actually, in the universities, it's common that every lecturer would have the, let's say, open hours, which is like 2 hours on Tuesday afternoon. And this is the only time in a week that if you book it in advance, you can come for 15-minute, half an hour chat directly one-to-one with your lecturer. And then this is the best opportunity to exchange some difficult, situations that you don't really grasp it. Yeah. And you really need to have this feedback loop of talking to someone face to face. And this is, the way to solve it. But it also means that the lecturer is only available at the time and is not, for your own kind of convenience 24/7. You're not pinging him on Slack or sending, 3 emails per day because like, oh, it's super important. Yeah, I need to have an answer. No, it's like because it's already kind of scheduled in by default from the beginning that this is the only time you can do this. Then, of course, we can transition it into the Zoom world or any other video or conference, service that can help you with that. But I think it's super interesting, to see those little solutions that have been working for like decades or maybe even longer. And now in the today's world, when we are busy, we are doing a lot of stuff, and we all should have some customized way of understanding, of acquiring the knowledge. That's one of the little things you can do.
Learning how to learn, basically.
Indeed.
That's something that is quite important, something every student should put first, because if you don't learn effectively, then you're just spending more time than necessary and more effort on something that might give you burnout, and everything needs to be tailored a little bit to yourself, and knowing how your own mind functions is like something you will know for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And you can improve on that. You can once you are aware of something, then you can build it up better in a better
building a foundation.
I would like to touch into the wealth topic that you mentioned, and I think that is actually one of the few stereotypes that I share about Norwegians, that the country is rich, and you have the natural resources, which is not only the oil, it's also about the nature, the vast spaces, kind of this intrinsic way of being effective, because if you spend so much time inside houses or offices, you are making sure that whatever you produce, doesn't matter if it's a cultural good or a physical thing, you can sell it in the global market, and just make sure that your whole society, your whole country is growing. So how do you see the wealth as a structure? If like, let's say from the digital nomad perspective, what can average digital nomad do to be better at it?
For their personal finance.
Yeah, because I think that's like the core, like you have the personal finance that every one of us needs to control somehow.
Yeah.
And it's easy to spend on like Airbnbs and like nice excursions every weekend if you are in some nice place like Tenerife.
Yeah. I believe this all begins with mindset and having a growth mindset and seeking freedom and wanting to learn. So I think initially everyone should try to become financially literate, at least in terms of their in personal finances, and how, like, understanding how mortgages work and what different asset groups there are, investments, compound interest, very, very important. And looking at So in most things in life, I find that we are fairly brainwashed, like all of us. And for me,
that's true.
My mindset is that I'm not just like trying to acquire knowledge all the time. I'm constantly tearing down the constructs that have been passed on to me by, family, society, tearing that down and trying to build up new constructs, new frameworks, more in line with reality. And I believe that a lot of people are sort of conformist into this, that your life is supposed to be lived this way or another. That the truth is you can choose, and you can acquire more freedom and wealth than you probably think in the first place. So we need to, you can accept that you're going to work 9 to 5 in the office until you retire, and you're basically trading your time for money. And if you're okay with that, then fine, but that doesn't need to be the case. I don't want that. I don't want to work for the rest of my life. And if you don't find a way to make money work for you while you sleep, then you will be working for the rest of your life. So I would encourage everyone to look into making money working for you, be that through investments, be that through starting your own business. You can become like an angel investor, or you can start acquiring real estate, these sort of things. All of that is possible for most people in Norway, at least. And that's it.
Would that be also a program, as you mentioned, for those male Norwegian friends?
That's part of it. So what I didn't really get to finish on that topic. As of now, it's a concept that I have written down and tried to conceptualize a lot of it for myself, how I want it to work, how to like monetize it, because I would like to work with this. I wouldn't really like to profit from it. I just want to contribute, and I want this to be have a very holistic approach that goes that touches onto like many different points in a person's life. Mental health, physical health, of course, interconnected. Personal freedom / wealth, fulfillment, skill sets, and probably a lot of like practical stuff when it comes to travel and digital nomadism. Like I could see myself working with people that are doing this and just still want to stay in Norway, but as long as I can help them with their actual issues, if it's mental health or if it's physical health or anything, because I find that the mental health system in Norway is not that good. Like you might think it would be good because of how rich we are there and socialistic systems and all. But I find that there are many more people there that need help than are getting help. There's still some stigma related to it. The waiting lines are huge. Like if something goes wrong there, you get like thrown out of the system. It's like months to get back in again. It just doesn't work. And in my personal experience, the most effective thing is just to pay for a private therapist, and that's not something everyone can afford.
Is there also, I'm asking because previously we had Derek here on the podcast, and he is the online therapist for the Dutch healthcare system. And do you have something similar in a sense that once the patient meets the therapist in person, in an office, and after, let's say, 5-10 sessions, they can move into the, remote sessions, and this is a bit the structure, the physical structure, at least. You are not queuing up, or you are not kind of like bound by the boundaries of your city because you are more distributed. Is there a thing?
I don't know, because when I did therapy in Norway, that was just in person. And this was before Corona. So I don't know, things might have changed. As far as I know, I haven't heard about that being possible, but I can imagine it having happened during Corona.
Yeah.
But I know that now it's possible to find online therapists, of course, almost anywhere. And I think it is important to be able to meet your therapist in face-to-face. That's ideal. That's optimal.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's necessary for it to have a positive effect on your life.
Yeah.
I do wish that in Norway they were more progressive, but the thing is that there's a lot of bureaucracy, and that's good in one way because bureaucracy prevents corruption, and Norway is one of the least corrupt countries in the world, which is great. But also it means that change happens very slowly, and I wish that things were changing much more quickly in Norway. And we have right now a new government that is pretty much happy with the status quo, which is a bit sad to me. So I wish it was quite a bit more progressive. I think the effects of the mental health on society will be quite apparent quite soon, at least for sure eventually, after this pandemic. There was already, I believe, a huge mental health pandemic already going on in the world with where we're sort of, think we're forced to live, but we sort of have been accepting as society. And the pressure on especially young people, on students, expectations they think they need to live up to, maybe from both parents, from society itself. And it will just, as we're talking more and more openly about mental health, there will be more people seeking out help. And the system is going to get entirely congested. I think we don't really have enough therapists for the amount of people needing therapy. So we'll need to find ways to spread knowledge more and more in a way that is not necessarily just individual therapy, but people can also educate themselves a lot in not only their own like mental health situation, but also how they deal with other people. When I told my family about my depressions, they didn't really know how to deal with it. They saw it and they accepted it, and I'm sure they felt sympathy, but they didn't know what to do with it, right? And I didn't know like what, even how to like what to ask for. I just know I struggled and I wanted to let them know, but I didn't know really what I needed. But I think that's something that as a society we can educate ourselves on and make it easier to talk about it openly and deal with things. And that's going to have to happen. If not, there's going to be a huge problem.
That's a very nice, I think, segue to this topic, to this like heavy weight, but we need to talk about it. Like I personally feel super privileged that I have had this super nice, family upbringing, and my environment was safe enough, so I never have experienced, trauma or shooting or any, death of my
drugs
friends or anything, drugs,
alcoholism, maybe.
I don't know what happened. Like literally, especially like the time frame of the 90s. When I was a kid in Poland, and just the beginnings of the democracy and capitalism there, and for some reason it felt safe. Or
are you possibly the only Polish person that does not have alcoholism in their family in one way?
Probably, the only the last one. That's why I needed to leave the country. Like they couldn't accept me anymore.
You weren't Polish enough, you weren't alcoholized enough to be part of
Exactly.
So
if we treat alcoholism as a mental issue,
which it is,
and we should.
Alcoholism is a symptom. It's not a root cause of
and,
but it is an illness.
And this is again something that I need to read up. I need to learn about it as something that I am aware that some people have it. I am now more aware of that people within my family has some issues like this and has some, either ways to deal with it or some support, or they try to mitigated by like completely disregarding and hiding and like what is mental health, like what is this thing in the TV, like this celebrity is talking about.
I don't have that. I don't have mental health. It doesn't even exist.
Yes. Let's start this topic with laughing. But I'm curious then if you could say, and please share as much as you feel comfortable with. It's not a therapy session. I'm not a therapist. I don't want to play one. I just want to be useful for listeners who may have some issues themselves or their partners or people in the close circles. If you could say more in terms of why did you even decide, back in Norway to start the therapy, and when did you kind of were aware that you need one?
I want to preface it by saying that the reason that I want to talk about it is because I want to normalize just sharing these sort of things. More people than we realize have these sort of issues, these sort of traumas. And when I'm talking about this, I'm not looking for sympathy. I am very much okay with most of these things today. I feel like I've overcome them. But by sharing, I hope that more people will be able to share, and more people will be okay with accepting what they're dealing with and seek help and get better. So when I was a small child, I had initially a good childhood up until I started getting bullied at school. This was in 2nd or 3rd grade, and it continued until the last grade of youth school, which was 10th grade. And
what is the age, more or less?
When it started? 6 to 7. I was at 6 now. 7 until I was 16. But it sort of continued into high school, but then it wasn't like I didn't have the same class anymore. It wasn't the same people. But I was already struggling with like the effects of this, and I very much like acted like an outcast and sort of did and had these behavioral patterns that would easily get me into trouble. I fairly heavily bullied, lots of physical stuff mostly, but also words and a lot of like making me feel like I didn't belong a lot. In retrospect, we should have just changed places, changed schools and all. But I got help from my mom, from my grandma, and from like the system that is sort of supposed to deal with this in Norway. But the fact is that my school in Orkdal is one of the schools in Norway that has the most bullying to this day. They're in the newspapers and stuff still to this day because there's so much bullying. It's like in the culture there almost. The parents of the other, most the boys in my class, they did this sort of thing even to other people, grown-ups in the town I grew up, and it was so natural for them. They passed it on to their kids, and they needed to feel superior somehow, and they put down others, and just really bad. There's one guy, one of my cousins, twice removed, I believe it's called in English. He actually apologized to me once, which was good, because then I actually realized, okay, maybe it's not just me. Maybe it's not. I'm not the reason I'm getting bullied, which is what I thought for many years. During the same time, my mom and dad split up, and my mom has her own mental health issues, and we didn't really deal well with everything with the bullying. I learned some pretty bad like defense mechanisms and stuff. I was provoking people. I knew how to push people's buttons, and that was my defense mechanism, and it didn't turn out really well. So I had very little safety from then on in my life. It made me really insecure. I really longed for proper love. I desperately needed validation and reassurance from friends, from girlfriends, and it had very bad effects on me in my teenage years and even throughout my 20s. But I did manage eventually to start making friends, and I still have most of those friends to this day, and they're still super, super important to me. They are really what makes me still feel connected to Norway. They're the primary reason why I go back. And without them and their support, I don't think I would really be here today. And it just shows how important it is to have people around you.
Yeah.
And eventually, in my 20s, I was denying this for that I really had any issues, or I just ended up spiraling negatively into escapism for pretty much all of my 20s. I was in a relationship, but I didn't really provide much to it, I believe. I was just depressed, and I played video games because I would rather live in a virtual reality than I would like to live in reality. And I think the biggest change started when I just got, it's like kind of similar to how I left Norway and became a digital nomad. I was just so desperate that I needed to make change. I had been in the same pattern for years. I had started university and dropped out twice, and I realized I needed to make change. And one of my friends was Hans Christian. He was really was going to the gym a lot, really into physical activity. So I joined him and another friend, Ola Theodor, and we went to the gym together all the time. And this is where I started saying, well, okay, I can actually make changes to myself, to my life. I started seeing improvements both in my mood and in my on my body, naturally. And I was starting to accept that, okay, I have these mental health issues that I really need to deal with. I started going to therapy, started on SSRIs, which are these serotonin drugs. And they're called happy pills in Norway, but they don't really make you happy. They just stop you from being really sad. So they flatten this whole like curve of emotions. And they didn't make me happy, but they did make me realize that shit, I don't need to be depressed all the time. So I actually stopped using them quite almost immediately after I saw that effect, because it made me realize that I can actually achieve this on my own. If the drugs can do this to me and make me feel not happy, not unhappy, then I can actually achieve that on my own. I started believing in it, and I started putting in the efforts myself to reach that. Started to walk the walk, and through therapy, through physical exercise, through socializing more, which was one of my biggest fears. Like, just going out and meeting random people was horrible for me. I could be with my friends. I felt comfortable there.
Just so I know, is it still happening in your hometown, or did you move out somewhere else?
I moved to a different city because I couldn't stay there anymore.
So you changed your environment?
Once I was done with high school, I just left.
So you were living on your own and kind of discovering all of those things.
I moved in with my girlfriend in Trondheim, and we stayed there. I lived there for how long? 9 or 10 years, I think. And that's where I went to university, and eventually I restarted university for the last time, and I finished. Because I had been working in a storage, and I learned then that I don't want to have those kind of jobs anymore, manual labor. And it just shows that there's no like one thing that you need to do to shape your life, but it's a constellation of things that you need to do.
Yeah.
But the important lesson here is that it is in your own hands. And I think when I was at my most depressed, if you had told me that I'm depressed because I choose to be, putting it in the like extreme words, but that it's your own responsibility, that is really, really hard to hear. And it can feel extremely overwhelming knowing that there's so much you have to do to even become like slightly content in life. And but I was able to do it, and quite frankly, I am proud of that. It is the biggest achievement of my life, and I think I'm so grateful that I was able to actually go from what situation I was in to here I am today. It's almost unbelievable to me how much I have achieved for myself. And I hope that can inspire other people. I hope I wish to use this experience and this knowledge to teach other people about how it can be done.
If I can just connect the dots correctly, you mentioned that you were working in a storage, so like manual work, which I assume is not really well paid, but you were already like living on your own, with your girlfriend, and finishing your studies, and also you have been already with the therapy, or like after the therapy, because you had the pills prescribed and you use them, but you previously mentioned that the private therapist is expensive. So in that case, like, did you manage to pay for the therapies, or did you have it from the national system, the government system?
I used the official system for therapy, which in retrospect is not ideal. The therapists there are not the best, but it's much better than not going at all. Yeah. Also, it's a bit difficult when you go and there's not like the greatest connection between you and the therapist, and you want to change. You can't just change like that, like you can with a private therapist. No, I did receive some financial support from my father to be able to go to some private therapists. He felt that was a good investment, and I couldn't agree more.
So even if they didn't fully grasp what is depression, they at least your father, he understood that this is something that you really need, and you really need to pay for.
I don't know how much it hurt him to see this sort of thing happening to me. I can only imagine how difficult that is from an outside perspective, seeing someone that is so close to you in blood is struggling. And I think they did their best from what knowledge they had from the generation they come from. But I, even with their support, it's still the majority of the workload is on yourself. That's just a fact. Anyone can support you and be around you, but you have to do the work yourself. That's just reality. We have this saying in Norway. That is in Norwegian, "Du er din egen lykkes smed," but that translates to "you're the smith of your own happiness," as in you create your own happiness.
Yeah.
And
it's funny enough, in Polish we have "jesteś kowalem własnego losu," which literally means the same. You are the blacksmith of your own luck.
Yeah, of your own luck, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. That's very inspiring to know, that it can happen. Like it's the progress is there to be done, but it has to come from within.
It has to.
Can you say how long was it, like from the moment you kind of were like fully aware that you need help and you get to the point like, well, I made this achievement?
As I was still in youth school, I believe I went to some like evaluations. They wanted to see if I had like ADHD or something like that. And I kept going every now and then. And I think it was first when I was about 22, 23, I sought out therapy for the first time. But I just went like a couple of sessions and then I just dropped out. I just didn't want to put in the effort. I believed for a long time that my depressions came from just genetics or something, that there's literally something wrong in my brain that
outside of
my control, outside of my circle of influence. And that was just me not wanting to take responsibility because the road ahead felt so hard, so long. I believe probably my depression started about, I would say 17, 18. And I didn't properly deal with them until I was like 26, 27. And I was only diagnosed with clinical depression, I believe, as 26-year-old.
This is when you got the pills.
This is when I got the pills.
Happy pills.
Which is like, this is, those are a lot of years.
Yeah.
So after that, you know what happened, right? Like, you figure this shit out and you're like, okay, I wouldn't say like I'm cured, but back then at least. But then you start looking back and saying like, wow, I spent all those years just being depressed. So then I had to deal with the guilt or like the regret. Right? That's another topic.
Yeah, of course. Which can, of course, fuel your depression even more.
Yeah.
Or just like being, glad that you are finally over. Yeah, like
that's,
you finish.
That's the thing.
10 years feels a lot, but some people are depressed for 50 years, and they don't know how to deal with it. So,
and I believe like today, this has made me stronger in many ways. It's made me who I am, and I'm really happy about who I am. And I don't really, like, there's not really any point in living in regret. You can learn from the past, but just don't stay there too long. Exactly. Don't dwell on it.
The bus already left from the station.
And on the same note, don't just plan for the future. Don't, like, in simple terms, depression is when you're regretful about the past or you're traumatized by the past, and anxiety is when you're worried about the future. Yeah. Of course, that's highly simplified, but and as we know, people who practice like mindfulness and various things, living this lifestyle in many ways, we are. I find that we oftentimes practice just appreciating the now, which is, I know, it's this meme almost that has been repeated to its death, like just live and be in the now, the power of now, blah blah blah. But it is quite true. The only thing that we actually really ever have is this very moment, which doesn't mean that you should not plan for the future, and it doesn't mean that you can't learn from the past, but the thing that really, really matters is right now.
One more thing in this topic, you said that...
I can talk about this topic for hours.
No, it's this one particular thing that I'm now thinking about, is that you had this journey that kind of helped you to realize the lost 10 years, or like those that kind of waiting on you, but now you achieved this self-awareness, this cure that came more from within than from the
it's not as much a cure as just knowing how to handle things.
Yeah. But then again, you said that the beginning of your digital nomad journey felt like this depression is hitting again. So, like, did you really felt
depression?
As low?
That wasn't depression. That was just fear. That was just fear. That was more anxiety because I didn't know what the future would bring. I was scared of failure. But I did tell myself that, well, the worst thing that really can happen is that I have to move back home. I have a family. I have people there that would house me in worst case scenario. I have a skill set. I have an education that will I'm not like going back completely with like blank sheets. I still have something tangible that I can use to be financially independent and all of this stuff. And I think that's a good framework. Like we're like a lot of people, I think their fear for trying things or doing things are more this fear that how other people would see you. Like, oh no, you went and tried this thing and then you failed. Like, no one remembers you for your failures. Like every company that has been started by someone, those people, the CEOs and the founders, they failed at some other company first. Yeah. No one remembers those names. They only remember the ones that succeed. And I was never really that concerned about like, how would people see me if I failed? This was more about me and myself anyway. Like, I think I have this story about fear. Well, I'm not going to tell it all. It's like a poem, but essentially,
go on.
Oh, I'd have to find it. I can read it. It's really good.
Is it some Norwegian poem? Or?
No, it's not Norwegian, but it is about fear, and I think fear does take a huge like it can decide a lot of people's decisions and too much, I believe. I don't think fear should ever be the deciding factor in anything that you do. Of course, unless it's like jumping into the cage with a tiger or something like that. That's not really rational. But in a society that we live in today, there's not that many tigers around, I've found. And we can do most things without very dire consequences.
Yeah, there is a lot of tigers in our imagination.
Yes. So here it is. I'm sorry that I can't say who wrote this at this moment, but we can put it in the show notes or something. So it goes like this. Dearest fear, creativity and I are about to go on a road trip together. I understand you'll be joining us because you always do. I acknowledge that you believe you have an important job to do in my life and that you take your job seriously. Apparently your job is to induce complete panic whenever I am about to do anything interesting. And may I say, you are superb at your job. So by all means, keep doing your job if you feel you must. But I will also be doing my job on this road trip, which is to work hard and stay focused. And creativity will be doing its job, which is to remain stimulating and inspiring. There's plenty of room in this vehicle for all of us, so make yourself at home. But understand this. Creativity and I are the only ones who will be making any decisions along the road. You're allowed to have a seat, and you're allowed to have a voice, but you are not allowed to have a vote. You are not allowed to touch the road maps. You're not allowed to suggest detours. You're not allowed to fiddle with the temperature. Dude, you're not even allowed to touch the radio. But above all else, my dear old familiar friend, you're absolutely forbidden to drive.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. Actually, when we started reading it, I'm pretty sure I have heard it in a lovely voice of Neil Gaiman.
Oh, it could be. Yeah, that's
yeah. I'm not sure if he wrote it, but he's one for sure who was reading it out loud, and it's a beautiful reminder. Yeah, and to some degree, I view the digital nomading, movement that we are doing here as our own way of driving with creativity.
Yeah.
Because the fear is always there. Yeah. Like you cannot shut it down. It's like such a part of your evolution, of your mind.
We have to acknowledge this, that most, or like all of our emotions are a product of our nature. They're there to actually keep you safe, right? Even stress that has been demonized today in this society. We have stress for a reason. Without stress, we would just not get out of our beds.
Yeah. like literally what we were saying about cortisol. Yeah. Like it's written down in like hardwired in your operating system of your body that to move up your body, you are struck with the sunlight.
Fear is there for a reason too. It's to keep us safe. It's from the amygdala, the primal monkey brain that we have that makes us jump when someone jumps out from behind a cabinet to scare us or something. And we need fear to survive. And but in this society, things are a little bit different. The consequences aren't so high. But before, if someone was like, they saw some rummaging in a bush, they thought they would go inside and see what's there, and 9 out of 10 times it's a chicken or some lovely meal or something, and then 1 out of 10 times it's a tiger, and then you die. Then that's it for you, my friend, and then you're done and over with. And that's not reality anymore.
Exactly. Okay, so I'm just curious, how would you summarize the mental health journey for anyone who is seeking help, and also from the multicultural, multinational perspective that we are talking here? Because I would say that I don't know a single country that their healthcare system is super, the best in the world, and especially in the department of mental support, that, just, go and talk to your GP, general practitioner, and he will guide you and he will, find the best solution for you. I'm just curious, on this, point of time, knowing that we have some resources, we have websites or books or podcasts, blah, blah. It's still a very passive source. We can read up on what is that, on what is this, what is the consensus of what we call the mental health. But from your own subjective perspective, what do you recommend if you know that someone is having this kind of issues?
The thing is that this is so subjective that I think there's no like one size fits all for this sort of thing. You have to find out your own way. I think everyone, if they're developing critical thinking skills, developing self-awareness, they can figure out what is it they really need, something that is very common today is loneliness, for example, right? A lot of people struggle with social anxiety, which is a big problem, as loneliness or needing social connection is probably the single most important thing for human beings, and that's just through nature. There are a lot of people who can enjoy solitude, but that's something different than loneliness, right?
Yeah.
Most people, even the most introverted of us, they still require some degree of social connection. Everyone needs love, and everyone needs to love, and to summarize, I think you need to find out really what you need yourself. A therapist is not someone who's fixing you. A therapist is someone who can give you tools, who can maybe open some doors in your head, help you see things. They can help you find a way forward. But like I've said and repeated a couple of times now, the work has to be done by yourself, and no one knows yourself better than yourself. People around you can help you. Having a support system around you can help you. Having friends can help you. Even taking drugs in terms of medicine can be helpful. They can be tools, but they're never the solution in itself. This is because it's a complex problem, which means that most likely it has a complex solution. I think the most important thing that you can do is really accept what you're struggling with.
Mm-hmm.
Try to identify it, acknowledge it, and then try to figure out what you can do about it. Seeking professional help is most likely the best thing you can do for yourself. There is the case of physical exercise. That is, I believe, is very important because it releases hormones in your body that makes you feel better. It makes you look better, which can have a huge effect on self-esteem. And most likely when you start working out, you also start caring more about what you eat. Nutrition has a huge effect on your mental health. Physical health, naturally. It's some people like to divide this thing like, oh, it's the mind and then it's the body. It's all connected. The brain is literally a part of your body. It's a physical object that needs blood and nutrition and oxygen. And we should also not undervalue the need for social interaction and connection. It is also scary sometimes to meet people, especially new people. But we do need those strong bonds to survive. There's also like hormones involved there that released in your body, both dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin.
They can only be released if you touch someone.
Well, oxytocin is actually a little bit like there's some myths around it. I think you can get it just from like hugs or something like that. It's not really true. The two moments that I'm aware of that oxytocin is released in your body is for during lactation for mothers when they're feeding their babies, and it's after sex between partners, and they stay close and intimate, and that's like the two moments.
The best ways to release them.
The best way to release oxytocin. Serotonin is this hormone that is released in your body when you're really calm and not very active, but you just feel blissful. It's like after a dinner, surrounded like around the table with friends, for example. That's when you feel this. It's not very. You're not doing much activity. Dopamine happens when you're being very active, when you're like solving a puzzle or playing a game or running or some physical exercise. That's the goodness, good feeling in the body hormone, reward hormone that is related to activity. All of this is complex functions of the body, and don't really need to understand how that works, but it can be helpful to understand those mechanisms if you want to maximize like your efficiency, productivity, what you can do most about your body and your mind in terms of like neuroplasticity and just improvement. Like if you want to learn a language, for example, it's super important. I think sleep we haven't talked about. Sleep is very undervalued. If doctors could prescribe one thing to people that would help them the most for their general health, sleep. Get 8 hours ish of sleep every night. One of the difficult things in Norway is that there's not daylights all of the time. So keeping a proper circadian rhythm can be really hard. Then I would suggest getting some artificial lights.
Like the smart bulbs that you mentioned.
Actually, you would need much, much more than that. The sun releases about when you're outside in the morning and there's not overcast, then it would be about like 70,000 lux, and you should get about like 100,000 lux in the morning for like 10 minutes or so. If it's overcast, you might want to stay out for like 30 minutes. Super important for your circadian rhythm.
The lux is also the way we measure the amount of
light. I believe it's like
a
amount of light. Like one lux is one candle light of light per square meter, I believe, or something like that. So the sun, when it's like it's looking at 70,000 candles all at once.
The brightness, of object.
And there's even if it's overcast, it's usually much more light than when you're inside, even in a fully lit room. You can measure this on your phone, like apps called like Light Meter or stuff like that.
But is it even feasible to build up some sort of artificial sun within your house? I'm talking right now in Norway.
You can actually go to your doctor, and you can rent these artificial light systems. There's multiple light bulbs, I believe, in them, and they can be helpful in the morning. They do provide quite a lot of light, but it's not enough. It's just like a table lamp or just one light bulb like that. You need something really, really strong. I'm listening to this podcast called Huberman Labs that is teaching me all about this stuff, and it's been made a huge change in my life lately. And I recommend listening to that. It's like I find it like basic, foundational stuff about life, understanding the mechanisms of the body and the mind. And yeah, he pays more attention.
Like a practitioner.
He's a neurobiologist professor. And he's more, he follows this light plan much more rigorously than his eating plan, for example. Like this is like, if this isn't done during his day, then he doesn't really function properly. Like it's more important than eating exactly at this hour or working out at exactly this hour or something like that. We really need to follow the light more. Like everything that I'm learning about lately.
If I can just interject, I would recommend starting knowing about Huberman from a very nice introduction interview with Tim Ferriss, because this is where I listen to him, and I'm also subscribed to the podcast that you're mentioning. It's a good source. And it's also like very focused, like one episode is only about the sleeping patterns and what it does to the brain, and like specifically what are those different hormones that are affected. So it's an interesting point to make for others.
And it ties so neatly into to sleep, how important that is. We have so much happening in our brains during sleep, both like in terms of learning, motor functions, or anything like language or knowledge or something like that. And also, it is pretty much free therapy. Like during REM sleep, you're going through a lot of things in your head, like even like hypothetical events or events that have happened, and it can deal with your trauma. It goes through those things. So what during REM sleep, you don't have this hormone in your head that is related to fear, so you cannot feel fear during REM sleep. We
your own private virtual experience that is healing you by
you
default.
Can be doing super scary things in your dreams in a way, even if you don't remember it, and you're not scared. We can wake up and have a nightmare and be really scared, but that means that like the REM stage of your sleep has ended, and we can wake up and be scared, but that's like after REM sleep. So so it's super important to get all of your sleep.
Okay, Eirik. It's important to underline it's not Eirik. There is an I after letter E, which is something that not many people notice when they meet you, when they kind of see you on Slack channel of Nine or somewhere. It's like, it's probably the weird way that Norwegians are spelling this name, but it's...
No, there's people are also named Eirik in Norway. It's
really?
Just a different, just a different name.
Completely separate.
Separate. And well, it's the same name in a way, but yes, different spellings and pronunciations.
Okay. And there is also a thing with the last names that they are very short.
Not necessarily. I don't think so. No, my name is really short, but...
but it's not common that many people in Norway would have like one syllable names.
No, not super common, but also not uncommon. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Little fun fact about Norway. And there are a few other things that I would like to touch on, and I do think they are quite important. Or they are the shared interests that we talk about when we meet, and they are connected, for example, to the wealth knowledge, to the wealth skill that we should all develop. What can you tell me about the possibilities of Web3?
So that's a big topic. I mean, people are still kind of like, most people don't understand crypto in the first place. They don't understand Web3 or DeFi, which is decentralized finance. And it's understandable because none of these things today are in the adoption phase. They're not mainstream. They're not streamlined in a way that people can use it yet.
Yeah.
But there are quite huge possibilities there. So, and there's a lot of skepticism. There's a lot of people who think this is just a fad, something that will never continue, much like, and very often, compared to the internet. When it started, a lot of people could not see how this could change the world. They thought it was pointless. It was just a fad. And there was a lot of problems in the internet in the beginning, especially the .com bubble, and that did burst. And so might this bubble in crypto burst, but that doesn't mean that there's no value in it. Doesn't mean that it doesn't solve real life problems. Another thing that people should distinguish between is Bitcoin and every other cryptocurrency right now. Bitcoin is a store of value. It's something that, more like a property type asset that you can invest into because it stores value, much like gold, but it's even more scarce. On the Bitcoin network, there's never been a hack or anything that's like stopped it from functioning. This was very carefully planned in its inception, and it's been running for what now, 11 years or something without one single halt. And the more time goes on, the more it proves that Bitcoin is doing exactly what it was supposed to. Of course, there's the huge discussion topic what most opponents of Bitcoin talk about today, which is the energy consumption. And for me, I believe also in, like, I want reform in energy, I want more green energy and all, but at the same time, there is, in my opinion, value in securing the world's best and most secure financial system in Bitcoin. Anyway, we're not talking about Bitcoin, we're talking about Web3.
Yeah, which is the more general topic that includes Bitcoin and then other cryptocurrencies, NFTs, and everything else.
Everything on that side of the cryptosphere, mostly related to the Ethereum network, which is it's about smart contracts, and it's this whole different consensus system, proof of stake, which has a lot higher complexity to it, which means it has a much larger surface of attack, many more problems they have to solve before it really works. And it's a bit delayed for 5-6 years now, this whole proof of stake consensus system that Ethereum wants to use. And I would say that to understand Web3, you have to understand the internet, or Web 1 and Web 2 as it's referred to today. And Web 1, it can be said to be how a web page was when it was pretty much just like a just text, almost like the static websites where you could scroll through and just read, not much interaction. Web 2 was pretty much when social media started to become popular, when you could interact, when you could change how the website looked by pressing buttons on it and stuff like that. What and I guess there are many problems with Web 2 and social media these days, like the impact on mental health, of course, which I'm much concerned with. I try to not use that much social media. Mostly I use it for interacting with friends back home in Norway.
Yeah. And like communicating one-on-one, yeah?
Yeah, and communicating one-on-one. I'm not like...
one to masses.
Yeah, not with the masses. some like hiking pictures on Instagram. That's like what I do. And right now, if you're part of one of these like larger networks like Twitter or Facebook or something, then the ownership of the content there is not yours. It all belongs to Twitter or to Facebook, and they monetize you, right? You're the product in a way. And what Web3 tries to solve is that this is not like these communities, these networks. They're supposed to be owned by the network, by the people that participate.
By the original creators.
By the original creators. To be fair, the one who provides the actual value, because there is value in community, right? If you're part of a club, if you have been part of a club, like a football club or anything like a card collector club or anything, that has value for you subjectively. And that is what Web3 tries to solve, where you're able to create these communities where the ownership belongs to the community itself. And that's the real value of the NFT technology. If you ask me, we hear all about these JPEGs, these pictures that can be that are selling for millions online.
Yeah, we need to start somewhere. Yeah, .com bubble was also starting with this. Yeah, like if someone registered a domain of like cat.com, it's like, yeah, of course, like anyone would like to buy it, and that's the problem. Yeah, because they were betting on the assumption that it has value because you think about it.
NFTs might like this whole thing, that it might be a bubble, but the technology behind it still has properties that can be very, very valuable. I believe also that the NFTs themselves, the JPEGs, or not even the NFTs are not even JPEGs. They are links to a place where an image is hosted,
like a property, right? Yeah.
Okay, it's like a receipt that shows like this. It's like an NFT is like basically the document that proves that you own this house. You can ask like, what value does that document really have in real life? It's like why does it have value? It's because I and we accept that this document has value. It's all subjective, just like banknotes, just like the coins. They have value because we all believe they have value.
And we don't question them because the system has been, in perpetuity for so many hundreds of years. If we are talking only about the modern version of capitalism, it kind of became the foundation that we never question it until the system stops working.
Until the bank or the government freezes your bank account.
Yeah. And then this is, I also see it as a really great alternative and just spreading the awareness, giving the power back to the people. And even if it sounds cliche, the practicalities are just so amazing, that you can, and those are the stories of like artists that I follow or just know about. The NFT can be a bubble, and there's so many scammers and people who abuse it. But you cannot, erase the fact that so many artists for like thousands of years, they have been always undervalued. Because either you are a Da Vinci and you have a sponsor, and great, you can become wealthy while you are still alive.
Great for creators. Today the market is not very efficient, and that's what they want to do. They want to make it more efficient. They want to give the power back to the content creators and the users, and remove the middleman. Of course, even in like a Web3 environment, you would need some sort of like matchmaking marketplace, where the sellers of like some art, song, or whatever need to find sellers. Or buyers. I mean, that's always going to be there, but that can be at a fraction of a cost of what it is today.
Just to give you one very nice example that speaks to me, because I have the ambition to publish a book at some point, and for me, kind of observing or understanding the publishing, the book publishing industry is super interesting because self-publishing, like the idea that, okay, I can just put a button on my website and sell it like for $20 wherever the person, the reader is. And the funny twist about the whole thing, because it's running for at least 10, 20 years, is that currently, as a book author that is just starting my journey, I can either go to a traditional big publisher and have a contract, or choose my self-publishing. Let's leave the crypto for on a side for now. But this created a whole new dynamic, when an author can first choose which path they want to go. They can do also a hybrid, that they start with self-publishing, sell like 10,000 copies, prove that there is a market, for what they have written, and the story of a guy who wrote Martian, like the book that then was made into a movie. And this is exactly it, like if you give more options, more power into the hands of the creators, because writers are also creators, then you just spread the fruits, spread the money that they can all have in different pockets, and they can decide where to go. So this creates just much better economy, much better situation for everyone who is involved. And this is what I think crypto promise for every other artist, for every other creator in every other industry, like to replicate the system of like this self-publishing or publishing with a house into much more broader scale, with the fraction of a cost in many different markets, in many different languages, not just based on US dollars, blah blah. But this is amazing, at least from my perspective.
I completely agree.
So what do you do in the Web3 world, or what direction are you trying to, go?
What do you mean, like as a whole, or what I'm doing individually?
Yeah, you individual.
It's twofold. This project that I want to build, it is not currently encompassing Web3, but that's definitely something that I will consider. And it sort of makes sense too when I think about it. But it's just at the conceptual stage at this point. I think that what I'm doing personally with Web3 right now is that I'm mostly learning, because it's a huge field, and there's as a developer, it's something that I'm transitioning to. I'm learning about like writing smart contracts, about hooking it up to blockchain and like everything, which there are many networks. There's the Ethereum networks, there's Solana network, and there's all these different layer ones, as they're called. And they run on different types of smart contracts written in different languages. And I'm just trying to like find my way through this jungle because like you said, there's a lot of scammers, there's a lot of centralization, which goes against this whole thing they're trying to solve. If a blockchain network is completely centralized and run by some entity, then kind of the point is gone, because that what we don't want is like for banks to freeze our accounts or whatever,
or to replace the current banks with a new crypto banks that are also centralized and just controlled by a different company.
Doesn't really make sense at all. And also there's the problem that, which makes it hard for mainstream to adopt it right now, is that when you're transacting on any blockchain, then you're completely responsible for everything yourself. So if you make a mistake, you're not getting that money back. And that's something that is like, this is kind of like a double-edged sword in a way. And it's this, I talked about imposter syndrome before, and this is a step up from that, because there's even more rug pulls, as they're called, stuff like that. So just for me, just choosing kind of which network, which direction I want to work within, which ecosystem, that's really difficult. Because I want to be within the one that I see has the most realistic chance of existing in the future. If you look at what ecosystems were popular 3 or 4 years ago, it's not the same ones today. The only one that's like a constant is Ethereum, but also the developer experience programming in Solidity on Ethereum network is supposed to be really, really bad. But it might just have to be the first stepping stone anyway.
But isn't it also, somehow comparable to the idea that when you become a programmer, a developer of a code, you can start with one language and then you can transition to another one.
There is a lot of like transferable skill sets there, of course. Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the best things you can learn as a developer is to just be dynamic with that, and like constantly learn new things, keep developing new skills and expand and transition, because it's super required if you want to be if you want to specialize and become really good at it. That's what you gotta do. But that's just for my own like development case. I'm also trying to become more and more financially free, and by that I'm doing investments, and I'm doing most of it on DeFi, which is high risk, but also high reward. But I understand these risks. It's fun. It's for me today, it's like more like a game than anything else, and I see that as like money that I'm willing to lose.
Especially at the phase that it is so unregulated. Like you can play with it.
For mainstream adoption to happen, this sphere also has to be regulated. We have to make it easy to know like what is taxed, what is not, which protocols are like safe to use, which are audited. Also, there's coming more stuff like insurance is possible there now. But just to say what kind of value it provides is that the traditional financial system today is very inefficient and gives a lot of money to the middlemen. The decentralized finance makes it possible to take up loans. It makes it possible to lend and earn money doing that. You can earn money through securing a system called staking, where you receive rewards for providing security to the system, which means you're literally like locking up your money. And you can also earn money doing something called liquidity mining or yield farming, where you receive trading fees, which is very new ways for people to become financially independent by earning money while sleeping.
I don't know if you also had this realization, but the best byproduct of being interested in the whole Web3 is that you cannot understand the concept, anything that is happening, especially in DeFi, if you first do not understand the traditional market. Because if you want to replace the banks, you really need to, cover your basics in like, okay, so what is national bank? What is the national currency? Why there are some...
What is a central bank?
Drawbacks, in the whole thing. And then what you are saying, like if you just tell someone, it's yield farming, what is yield? So again, I don't want to make it into like an introduction level that will be describing every word that we are using it. There will be links in the notes of this podcast. I'm more curious of, just to wrap up this topic. Do you have some sort of vision, or do you believe that within our lifetime, because I don't want to put a flag like, in 10 years we will get this or that. But what I really like is the perspective of like my grandfather lived over 90 years. So it's like almost a century of things that happened during his lifetime, from like super, super bad things like the Second World War, then, growing up in Soviet controlled Poland, And then, he died at the time when we have iPhones, Web3, flying the world. I am a digital nomad, and something that he could never grasp, because he cannot, fully grasp what is a computer, what me and my brother are doing every day. So if you could try to imagine, like if we are just in the beginning of the journey, we are, still young, or like still in the beginning, in the phase of what is happening. What do you think, like on our deathbeds, like what would be, what can we say that we achieved?
Well, I hope that these large corporations and the sort of almost monopolies that we see around the world today will the power will have moved from them into more distributed networks and smaller communities where the power is actually lying with the masses rather than with like one person on top or like a board or something like that. I hope like I can be like a utopian dreamer sometimes. But there are like theoretical cases here where crypto and this thing called DAOs, which are like decentralized autonomous organizations, can replace government. And,
or at least some parts of the government.
Or some parts of government.
Infrastructure,
A DAO can be any kind of organization where voting power goes directly to the users and the holders of the tokens or whatever. And then it's like self-autonomous. And I hope that we'll be able to perform real change in our society by having this sort of voting that can't be hacked, that can't be
seized or somehow controlled by the government.
Yeah, because I know we see now during COVID, and we've seen it before in many instances, that governments tend to get a little bit more like authoritarian and totalitarian, and we really don't want that, even though it has been necessary to some extent during this pandemic. Like I know the whole mandate thing is quite controversial. We don't a lot of people don't want to get vaccinated and this stuff, but that's a discussion for another time. But related to that, we see in Canada right now this trucker demonstrations. They are in the roads. They're blocking the highways, and they're hindering businesses from running and all of that stuff. And I think that's not how a demonstration should be run. I think most of them are like anti-vax and that stuff, things that I don't identify with. And yet there are laws in Canada that tell you how you're allowed to demonstrate. And because they're not following those, Trudeau has decided to ask banks to freeze their bank accounts, which I find entirely unconstitutional. And even though I don't agree at all with these demonstrants, is that a word? Demonstrators? Protesters. Do you think that's the wrong way about it? They have a law system where they should just be following like the rule of law. They should be tried in the court system. But the fact that the government can just go in there and say, hey, freeze their bank accounts, that can happen to anybody, you know? And that's a slippery slope. And we see so many countries now, like Turkey and Argentina, and we've seen it before, Venezuela, where their currency has been debased. And even though Bitcoin is a super volatile asset, it's less volatile than...
It's more secure than some national currencies, yes.
Bitcoin goes up and down, and the Turkish, is it lira? It just goes down, you know? Like, so what would you rather have your savings in? And I hope that we can be doing global transactions efficiently and without high fees, without having to have some middleman. Like even if you're trying to do transaction to a different country nowadays, someone has to punch a button in the bank and say, I approve this transaction, which really shouldn't be necessary.
Yeah.
Why should a bank need to be involved at all? This is something between two people, and everyone, like it's like a human right to be able to transact. We cannot function as a society. It's a human right to transact, to be able to trade something. And there's no need for banks there.
Yeah, they may have some necessity, like as a place you can borrow a loan or like keep your money secure.
That's something that you can get that through crypto now.
Yeah, alternative solutions. Yeah.
You can borrow from someone else.
Yeah.
Another person, and they can choose what interest they're going to have.
If I can add some color to the picture that you're painting, again, like what I know from what we currently achieved is amazing, and what I really like about is the email system or email, how it works, because
SMTP protocol.
Yeah, even though that, of course, there is Gmail, there is Hotmail, so like one of the biggest companies that control like most of the free accounts you get on the internet, and this is bad. Yeah, in a sense that people kind of follow into the trap or follow into the convenience of like, I will just give some of my privacy to those big tech companies and they will control it. But because the whole email system is set up on open protocols, it means it is interoperable. And if any one of us at any point of time would like to literally put a computer in their own house and have it like a mail server, to send and receive emails, it is still possible. Yeah, like there is nobody and no government, no technology can prevent it from happening. And this is a proof of concept that, okay, let's now replace the word email with the word money. What if I could go to the big bank, let's say, JP Morgan or whatever there is, and I would say, no, I trust them. They're like big, they have the history. I'll keep my money. But I shouldn't be prevented from like, setting up my computer that, serves as my bank in my house and again, send and receive the money with anyone, anywhere, ideally for free, or at least with some marginal costs. And with email, it's also this, like the cost is like electricity or like, some technology to sort your email or like buying, some operating system or program to sort your inbox. But this is it, like we managed to create a global scale, fast, efficient way, of course, with some drawbacks. But email is one of the first things, that we achieved with the beginning of the internet that still works, still has a value.
The email protocol was invented in like 90s or something, like it's very long ago, maybe even 80s.
It's still running strong.
And it's still running strong.
Yeah. Okay, let's put a dot on the whole topic of Web3. I have two last things that I would like to talk with you. We can do it in any order you wish. I am interested in your music taste and in your love for nature and hiking. Yeah, because in the very beginning I mentioned that we know you as your nickname, the Hiking Viking. And I know you also from the perspective of Spotify playlists and the very interesting choice of music, of what you listen every day. And discover. Okay, so pick and go on.
Well, it's funny. My musical taste has almost followed my mental health stability. I know. Like I used to listen to a lot of metal and very depressive metal. I think it was just enforcing my state. And I've expanded a lot from that. I'm very much now into like electronic music and some hip hop, and like I can listen to anything. I'm expanding more and more. But I actually use it as a tool in a way. I see music now as something that I listen to with more intent. So it supports whatever behavior that I'm like seeking. So when I'm it can be only entertainment too. That's fine, But when I'm working, I'm listening to a specific type of music where there's not much vocals, high BPM, instrumental, because it helps me focus. But that's only if I'm in this mood where that I find that sometimes I need to focus so much that I would prefer it to be completely quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Other times I would like the music, because it's just how focused you are in any moment and how much stimulation you need or whatever. But you don't want your music to be distracting, because then it just pulls you out of it. It's like counterproductive.
So besides the working mode, when you are in your exploration mode, what are the most original music genres that you would
music genres
recommend people to try?
Well, I'm entitled to say that I'm a big fan of Norwegian black metal, of course.
It's typical.
It's in my heritage. It's typical. No, it's not. It's actually like quite complex. Like I need a lot.
Sorry, I'm not diminishing it. I'm just
no. There's like I've always had a very very active mind. I need super like stimulating music, progressive like house or progressive rock or death metal or anything. I really like Mongolian or Tuvan throat singing. This is what he was seeking, I think.
Yeah, but it's because it's so original. Yeah, like it's actually part of
really
their culture.
Great.
Yeah? The way of is it the singing? Is it like
there's some
growling a bit?
It's not growling. It's they're making their vocal cords vibrate in a way that is, I don't know how they do it. It takes quite a bit of practice, I believe. I don't know. I just find it incredibly stimulating to listen to.
Yeah.
What more do I listen to?
Just one more genre that you would recommend to try, discover, or like, it's something unusual.
I quite like this psychedelic trance, not trance, is it? There's a genre called ambient that is pretty good. It's inspired by like some Indian sounds, like from the Goa region, I believe.
And Psy is this like in the Indian Psy?
No, is it PSY? As in like psych. It's from like psychedelics. I believe there used to be like a lot of drug usage and stuff in that like circle.
Okay. Due to copyright reasons, we cannot include those music in the recording of the podcast. But the links to the appropriate songs on Spotify or elsewhere we'll put in the show notes.
I also use music in the gym, for example, to like get pumped in a way to actually perform better. There's lots of research showing that is very effective. Just for like the max rep. Then I put on some. I always put on a Linkin Park with Paper Cut. That's a good one.
Really
gets me pumped.
That's the way to do those reps. Yeah.
Another trick is during work hours. Just put on a song that is kind of rhythmic, repetitive in a way, and then just repeat the same song over and over again. Some days I can listen to the same song like 20, 30 times, and I just forget anything around myself happening at all. It's great.
But it's like almost no lyrics.
Yeah, tend to be very few lyrics. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, not trance, but like progressive house, deep house. Yeah, I'm in a trance. Yeah, I'm in a trance.
In a flow.
In a flow.
Okay, the last thing before we finish, why do you like hiking?
I had a huge aversion to hiking coming from Norway because, I don't know, I think every parent that get children, they want like their children to be experiencing the same amazing things that they're experiencing. And I think as you grow, you become an adult, you appreciate nature more, you experience, and you just enjoy being outside more. As a kid, you just not really that interested in that. You just want to have fun. You just want to do things that stimulate your brain. Just walking in nature, I don't think really does that. But in Norway, you just have to. You're always going for these trips for the cabin or just up the mountain or whatever. And then
so typical.
Yeah, it's really typical. Well, but I mean, it's good in a way. Like, I think it's important to be connected to nature, but you have to find it in your own way. And it can't be forced upon you. Like, because for me, I just hated going. Like, I wouldn't even want to go for a walk.
Because video games are so much more interesting.
Video games are so much more interesting. And, well, when I came here...
Sometimes they are.
Yeah, they are. Video games can be great, but there's also... That can be misused as anything. You can drink too much water, you know.
Yeah.
But then again, video games are, in a way, today made to make you addicted to them, to have this continuous...
Better to choose them based on like fun factor, not like addiction factor.
Yes, and it can be recreational, it can be fun to do with friends, but if it's the only thing you do, if it hinders you from doing the things in life that are really important to you, then that's when it's a problem. But I did rediscover my passion for being in nature and hiking. When I came back here, I got much more accustomed to just using my body, being outside, being in green environment, which is also something that is really important. Just walking right out. Just viewing green space for like 30 minutes a day has been shown to like be super important for
the mental health.
Yeah. That's like I started saying a little bit earlier, like the more I'm learning, the more I see that it's all connected to our origins, how we used to live as human beings, you know, like that we used to live in tribes and communities where people would take care of each other. That's like increases the rate of survival. How we of course come from nature, how we used to eat food that was just foraged or from hunts
around us, not from the other side of the world.
Not from the other side of the world. That we were following the day-night cycle naturally rather than just using artificial lights all the time. This sort of thing all comes back. And there is, I think, a great like should I say, it's not necessarily fulfilling as much as it's like therapeutical and a way to rebalance your life for me, to be in nature, to not do something that is necessarily productive or anything like that.
We tend to stick to it, like everything we do in a day is like, I need to achieve something here. But
you don't need to achieve something every day. You need to find that balance, and that balance is individual. For me, I tend to go for a hike or to be in nature at least once a week. So I tend to do that on my Saturdays, so I can relax on Sundays. And it just happens to be so that this island Tenerife is it's very biodiverse. It has many different types of flora, fauna, and within an extremely small space or area compared to many other places in the world. In Norway, you would have to drive for hours, or like depending on where you live, of course. But where I lived, I found that the nicest places you needed to drive quite a while to get to. You can always go to the nearest mountain, but if you really want to see new things and see diversity, then you had to go for a while. Here you can have the ocean, sea, beaches, desert environment, barren environment, forest and like pine tree environment, and rainforest environment, and volcanic environment, all within like 30 minutes drive. It's just crazy to me. And it's so accessible, and it's really, really beautiful. And there's probably some element of this thing like being exotic for me, you know, because this is not the nature that I'm used to from Norway. That makes this much more, just much cooler to view. Mesmerizing. In Norway, I've seen things and it's beautiful, but you know, it's just Norway, the most natural thing in the world. For other people coming from here, for example, to Norway, that's
exotic factor.
That's exotic. But no, I luckily this thing have stayed with me since I came here, and I employ it wherever I go for new travels now to explore, because I don't really explore Tenerife anymore. This is more a place I come back to because I have community here, and because I like the climate, and because it's easy to access the nature. But when I feel the need to explore, I'm going to different countries.
Thank you very much, Eirik, for all the knowledge, for the wisdom, for the stories, for
Yeah.
Especially the mental health,
Yeah.
chapter is important. As I'm saying, I appreciate that people are willing to share the experience to make it as useful as possible to others.
Yeah.
And just being present, in the moment.
Just to end a little bit this about the mental health thing, there's I wanted to wrap it up because I realized we were in the middle of a discussion when we took a break, and it is that there's a lot of different things you can do for your mental health. And I mentioned physical exercise, I mentioned therapy, and one thing I didn't mention was meditation, which I think can be a very powerful tool. We are sometimes quite afraid of being with our own thoughts, and I think taking the time to sit there and be okay with your thoughts can be helpful, even if you do just 10 minutes a day. There's a misconception that meditating is to just suppress your thoughts or be without them, but it's more about like letting them flow through your brain and then just like let them go in a way, like a river. And that's something that can be quite helpful. I've started a meditation group with my family. It was kind of like a Christmas gift one year, and we just kept doing it. And I found that the accountability of like doing it in a group, as in not that we're doing it at the same time, but that we're telling each other when we're done doing it, has been quite helpful for all of us. And I think this is extra important as a digital nomad to be able to do these sort of things for yourself, keeping routine and doing the things that are good for your own sake, but also remembering to be flexible and social. I think loneliness is a big is like one of the biggest problems for many digital nomads. And that's why I find it so great to be able to reconnect all the time with those people that I've met, and Piotrek here every time, wherever we are, really. Like I know that a lot of people from Nine and other Colivings, they keep meeting up other places in the world, and I think there should be like a low entry barrier for like picking up those connections, because if you keep traveling to a new place every week or something, which for me is too fast, you can start getting desensitized to meeting new people, because there's always new people and you never get to keep any friendships. And we all need like some stability there. So be cool with like asking someone, can I travel with you, or can we go to the same place or meet up somewhere?
To establish the quality relationship.
Because people keep asking me like, how can I live this life always in a new place and stuff? And, well, you have to find those things that are familiar to you also, to keep an anchor, so that you don't feel like you're up in the air all of the time.
And I think this is a perfect way to end our conversation. We all need an anchor in a mental way or physical way, however it works for you. So once again, thank you very much for the conversation. And I wanted to ask you for a last dad joke.
Oh no. Don't put me on the spot like this.
Of course. No.
I'll just end up saying something inappropriate.
Again. But this time it will be on the record. It will be forever engraved. I will make sure that this podcast is
putting it on the blockchain.
On multiple ones. So if anyone fails... Okay, no need. We can link up to Eirik's stand-up comedian special website. He has a dedicated space where he is offending people.
Why do you do this to me?
Just kidding. Okay, thank you very much, Eirik.
Thank you, Piotrek.